You have to have Candy Thomas grace us with her present this morning.
I think that sounds like something.
Yeah.
Woohoo! All right. Oh, I'm a little stoked up. I've been on that bus for 3 days, so not been exercising. It's not been good. So infiltration. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Infiltration is a pretty decent indicator. It's not my favorite. My favorite is the aggregate stability that we do with the slump. Mainly just because there's so many problems with the ring and where you place the ring and how many times you do this. So it's really important that you, if I get it closer it'll be really bad. It's really important that you get it, put it in at least 3 or 4 different places. I like 5 replicates at least. I try to do in the row, out of the row, in a wheel track, out of the wheel track. And if you're worried about trying to improve your headlands, do one there, just as a counterpoint to see, where you're at, where your turn rows are, how much degradation is there. Because if you look at your yield monitor, you know there is, right? You always see that dark red color instead of the nice green, a lot lower yield. And a good thing to do, I'll just sell this, is to put those in some perennials for a period of time and turn on them. They're not making you any money, essentially, when they're in that red zone from a yield standpoint, and all you're doing is putting inputs in a decreasing resource, essentially. And the only way you're going to increase that resource is by adding the perennial break like Josh does to all of his fields, or and also putting some pollinator species in there. I've been attacked, I think, 5 times today now by the bumblebee that is out here.
Attack is a strong word, Candy.
Say
hello.
Yeah, it's been really close. We've been close and personal. So, and those are really great indicators of good things that are happening in your soil when you see those bees, those bumblebees are ground nesting bees, and they live there because of the limited disturbance that's happening out here. They'll come back to that same place year after year and have their brood in that hole in the ground. A lot of people don't like bees and are afraid of bees. Just don't go crazy wild swinging your arms around and let them do and smell, and they'll move on. I've got some laundry detergent apparently on today that they really like. My old ladies don't like stuff like that. Okay, so in the Kansas Soil Health Alliance has a really fantastic bucket that we didn't walk over here, but it's back behind you. And in that bucket is a ring, not this ring, because this is a ring that we had made with a lip to try to give it some structural integrity, because the amount of times that we do it, they can get a little bent up. If you got some old irrigation pipe, I've seen people do it. Remember those coffee cans back when we had steel coffee cans? They've used those. It just needs to be 6 by 6 at least, and pound 3 inches of that ring in. There's instructions in the bucket itself, but if you decide to make your own and you want it, you can just email Shannon and she can get you. I will send her the instructions, or you can email myself and I can send them to you, because it's nice to have the how-to and then essentially the why. What does the rate that I have, what does that mean? When we're trying to build soil health, it's all about building structure and adding porosity. And structure and porosity equate to water, infiltration, and storage. And your goal is to store and infiltrate as much water as you possibly can, because if we're running off, we're losing, as you saw in that more degraded soil, all of the nutrients that are tied to those soil colloids leave the farm essentially. We want them to go down into our soil profile and feed our plant life if you are using inorganic fertilizers. So our goal is to add, feed and to protect the soil biology. Feed it with not these continuous living roots that I'm setting by, because they're not the best. But if you do pull up one of these amaranths, they have fantastic structure around them and aggregation. I mean, everybody hates weeds, but when you look at the tilth and look at that root on that sucker, I mean, I'm not advocating to keep amaranth in your system, but they can break up some hard pans, and generally they're where things are not so great. They're in rows. And they do make really nice, I mean, if you just took your shovel and took some of that soil and compared it to where you have a wheel track in the same field, it's really friable, very loose, breaks up really easy. Cover crops, you know, like the corn that's standing in front of you, or sorghum, whatever that is, I think it's sorghum, are important as a food resource. And having different types of food is really important. I almost got into a fist fight with a guy about meat on the bus. It's like, you should just eat meat because it provides you with everything. I was like, okay, so we're talking about diversity of diet for our soil microbial life. Why do we want to just eat continuous meat? I want a diet of carbohydrates and nitrogen, just like our soil and our animals do. So having good food resource in different types, it'd be like, I hate potatoes. I'm probably the only person on this planet that does. But I grew up eating potatoes at every single meal. That'll get you to where you're not really fond of potatoes. That's what we were talking about. And so I think having, you know, the diversity of the diet helps feed that soil life besides the living roots. Then we talk about protecting it, having this cover all of the time. It's like having a roof on your house. You wouldn't want to live in that house without the roof on it. And so I remove that cover out of the inside of the ring when you go to run this. You don't want it in there floating or absorbing your inch water that you're trying to measure. So take it out if you can. If you can't, in your grasslands, just snip it off a little bit and leave some stubble, and then run your finger on the inside. So we got the cover, which is important for the biology. We're going to eliminate some preferential flow by pushing inside the edge of that ring, so all the water doesn't just run to the edge and down. That would give us a false positive. But besides having that good cover, we also want to minimize disturbance. So I do not want to disturb the interior of this ring, because that's where hopefully our porosity is, where our water is going to go down through, right? So you don't want to smash anything in the interior. Just snip it off, gently take it out, and then press on the inside. And then everybody, oh look, you came with a bag. I was just going to use my hand, because lots of people have a hand at least. I don't have two hands though today. We've got these bags in the Soil Health Alliance buckets, but everybody has these bags somewhere in their house, or even just a quart bag works really good. And you'll want to place that inside that ring. What this does is it gives an even chance for all the water to come into contact with the soil at the exact same time. It also, if you have a degraded soil, doesn't break down those very fine aggregates at the surface and seal over and fill in, kind of a vertical type erosion. They'll run in those little cracks, nooks and crevices and seal that off. So we don't want to do that. So we're going to gently release the water with the bag. You can also, the nice thing about the bag, I keep them in my vehicle, you can collect soil then too, if you need to. If you got a little hand lens and you want to take a look and see the food in there, put it in the baggie and you can do that. We all have these bottles in our car, at least some point in your life. They do have them in the bucket, but sorry, that's it.
That's okay. We love Clay County too.
Okay.
We're in Clay County, so.
Yeah.
Oh, we are? Okay.
Yeah,
Wait,
perfect
I have
timing.
a Clay
Perfect timing.
County water bottle. This water bottle is you want the 16.9 fluid ounce bottles. So the 16.9 fluid ounce bottle holds, I think, 444 milliliters or something like that.
Is that right, Colin?
Anybody got their water bottle on them?
Well, Colin should know.
Okay, so what we want to do is drink it down to where we have this, where it's kind of hipped out right here. That'll give you the exact amount for 1 inch of water. If not, in the bucket, I believe you've got, is there a measuring cup in there? Did we maybe put a measuring cup, or we're just using the bottle? And we tell you to use the bottle and where to go with it. One drink. One good drink. I did measure this at home repeatedly to make sure I knew where it was at. So we're pouring in the water, And then if you got like I just got a fancy iWatch just this weekend. You can use the timer on your watch, or you can use the timer on your phone, or if you've got an old school stopwatch, you can do that. So just slide that out and hit start. And he said he had about what, 100th, a tenth of an inch or less. In the instructions, it talks about steady state infiltration. So technically, if you're in a dry state, you want to run this at least 2 times if it's pretty dry. There's a handy dandy booklet from NRCS called Soil Moisture by Feel. It's for irrigators, but it works really good to determine whether you're at field capacity or not. So it'll show you if you pick up some soil and you put it in your hand and you squeeze it and you open it up from the soil type that you have, whether it be a silt loam or a clay loam or a sandy loam, how many fractures are in that ball that you just created, gives you an estimation of percentage of soil moisture. So field capacity is 30%. I know we don't probably have that necessarily here, but once you pour it in, you just sit and you wait. So this is a good time then to get your bucket and do your other tests and be close to it so you can periodically watch it. Sometimes it doesn't take really long if you've been, keeping at it and following the principles. And sometimes you may be here for a while. If I'm here for a half an hour and this hasn't moved very much, I keep a tape measure 2 on me, and I'll measure how much is left because I put an inch in. So it'll give me an idea after half an hour how much I did take in. But if it's not gone in a half an hour, that's usually a key sign that you're infiltrating less than an inch an hour at that point. And you got more work to do, right? Which is always fun. But a lot of times you'll sit here and you can see there may be air bubbles coming out. That's that air and gas exchange. So you're exchanging the air in the water, or in the air, in the soil profile with the water, and that's what we want to have happen so we get infiltration in the product. So it's kind of going in. It's not the fastest thing. You do get a little bit of moisture. If you do this where it's really moist, you may not get any movement at all. Don't be dismayed or upset about that. That's why I say, if you can make a ball out of a clay loam and it holds together, that's pretty good field capacity. You may not get more in there because all soils have a limit to how much they can intentionally take in. And so that booklet gives you a little idea what that is. The instruction booklet gives you an idea too of where those limitations are. So once you get down to a certain point, you'll wait for it and it'll glisten. The surface will have a sheen to it. You don't want it standing water or pockets of standing water, just those, just a light smear on the surface. That's when you know you've infiltrated your inch. And then you can do one more if you want to. If it doesn't go in, then you know that first inch is your infiltration rate. And you take 1 divided by the time in minutes, and that'll give you inches per hour. So I always like to look at it in inches per hour. A lot of people say, oh, I've got 5 minutes on infiltration. Well, what's your soil type? If that's a sandy loam, that should be pretty well expected. But if it's a clay loam, wow, that could be potentially pretty fast. So these are all relative to where you're at. If you use Web Soil Survey, there's a soil web app you can get for free on your phone. Inside their interpretations sometimes, or even in your local NRCS office, they can look up for your soil type, what that infiltration rate could potentially be. Sometimes it's expressed in available water holding capacity, and you can back calculate and determine what that is. But generally, for every 1% increase in organic matter, you get about a 2% increase in available water holding capacity. And that's pretty conservative, and that's from 20 different research papers. So as you start increasing, you can start increasing in your organic matter. You can start increasing the infiltration. There's some misinformation out there that NRCS did a while back, and it actually came from K-State. I did find that out. About for every 1% organic matter, you get around 25,000 gallons of water storage. That's not necessarily true. That's why I try to go with available water holding capacity, because all soils are different. It should be from 16,000 to 27,000. So it depends on that soil type. We're done, right?
Yeah, about 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Pretty close. You can call it 5 minutes.
Yep. So now you could take another bottle and pour it in.
We'll grab several.
Do that. Or you can go set up another ring somewhere else and run it in a different place and then average them all together. But like I said, this is pretty haphazard on determining how well you're doing if you just run one. Always do more than one. It takes a while. You can see 13 minutes of your time. And then when you're done, yeah, get as close as you can. Closer yet. There you go. Take a spade with you and then pop it out, because the goal is to look and see whether your wetting area is throughout that whole ring, which it pretty well was. You're in the sun and we can't. Or if you've got a biopore, and biopores are created by plant roots or earthworms, and they're conduits. And there's nothing wrong with water all going down a biopore, but if you've only got one in that area, you need some more. You know, you need a lot more biopores. And biopores are important. When we look at, you know, this field like this has got really good cover, we try to find those hot spots. I like turds. Turds are really good hot spots. You usually find biology under turds, but you'll find them by plant roots. They create these nice aggregate surfaces. They're inside these aggregates themselves. So if you've got good porosity, there's a place to live in there. You know, and having the cover is extremely important. Let's see, if we just look at, this is Jennifer's infrared thermometer, these are kind of fun. Just air on the surface itself. This wheat stover is superior in its ability to reflect sunlight, 77 degrees, which is pretty close to what our temperature is. That's really nice. But if I were to take this and put it on that black speaker, shoot that black speaker, which
It's hot.
could be, you know, pretty indicative of like a bare soil cover. I mean, you're like, oh no, that's plastic.
118.
No, it goes off of the actual.
We may have a microphone later or not.
Amount of difference between, you know, the cover itself. I usually do that when I do the rainfall simulator anymore on the bare pan. I know I do it after lunch, and it'll sit most of the day. Like just early this May at the Buffalo Dale, we had 155 degrees on the bare pan. And then on the pans that had cover, they were around 70 to 80. And it was about 85 that day. It was pretty hot, hot day in May. But that's how the infiltration ring works. And there's a actual soil thermometer in that bucket. Besides, oh, this is my bottle, but I lost the lid. Uh-oh.
No, I don't think you have the lid.
Did I
Oh,
not?
it's right there.
Yeah,
You're
I
like,
was gonna say. I try to keep my lids because it's always nice to have your lid. There's also, besides the thermometer, which the soil thermometer, which is good if you don't get one of those at like Harbor Freight for 15, 20 bucks, they're pretty cheap. But that soil thermometer is really good because you can put it in at a 4-inch depth. In that zone right in between there is where most of our biology is at, where our roots are at, essentially. We want to try to keep that as cool as possible because they like temperatures that we like. We don't like the temperatures we've had this last week, do we? No, neither do they. So besides the thermometer, there's the slate that he showed you, and we also have a rainfall simulation. So we've got one of these water bottles, and you just collect soil surface. I think I shut that off. Collect some soil off the surface. Just kind of take it and bust it up a little bit and put it in the coffee strainer. It's a coffee filter, actually. And then fill this bottle up. Just fill it all the way up. It's got holes in the lid. And then you'll just squeeze it on it and then check and see how long it takes or if it immediately goes through. Because at that point, that's your surface soil that's you try to get undisturbed. So just pick some up, you know, just these pieces here would be perfect in that coffee can, and then rain on it. You got your own little mini rainfall simulator. Now there's only one set in there. You can go and buy the other pieces if you want, or the goal was take a photo of where you've got things that you think are really, really great versus where you think you have things that are not so great. So you have got a comparison as a baseline, and then try to remember where those are. A lot of times now our phones have GPS. You can even, there's an app called Land PKS. It's free. It has our soil health assessment in it, and it's also geo-referenced, which is really cool. So you can go back to the same spot and rerun that whole assessment again and find where it was located. But you gotta be where there's a tower. I told him, I was like, dude, this don't work everywhere in Kansas because we don't have service everywhere. And they think it does, but I was like, no, not so much. But it is a good storage facility for all of your, you can take pictures with it too, which is kind of nice. And it's available to anybody free on the web, Land PKS. Or if you can use your phone to get to your coordinates. Set a pin using Google Maps. Ping, and then come back to that same spot. You'll be close. 33, 40 feet off is not real bad.
So before we get on the bus and go up the road just a little ways to the next spot, I want you guys to think, the reason why we wanted to have Colin here was because it's not, I understand 90% of people here, probably more than that, are not going to start pasture cropping. But what I wanted Colin here for was because listen to the way Colin thinks and observes stuff and makes decisions. And when he tells a story later, he did not set out to invent pasture cropping. They just stumbled upon it through observation. And so I just hope, did everyone notice the pigweeds in the field? Did everybody notice that something is eating the pigweeds? So the pest, the weed that we think is a pest, with the bug on it that we think a pest, is not always a pest. It depends completely on your context. And sometimes we need our pests to feed our other pests, so they're not feeding on the sorghums. And again, it's all about context. Like Josh said, he's a little disappointed that he has insects out here eating his pigweeds, because he'd rather his sheep eat his pigweeds. So again, it's all about your context and what you're doing. It's not about what Josh is doing. What Josh does, I'm not going to exactly take to my operation in Ottawa County, just 30 miles away. But we go back and forth all the time, thinking and talking and just thinking about different things and observing. So that's really what I want you guys to focus on today as much as you can, is the observation and the thinking process. So we'll get on the bus and we're going to look at the perennial break. We'll stop and look at the perennial break real quick. Nothing glamorous, but we'll look at the soil. We'll look at the soil. It's too bad you didn't have better gear.